Welcome to NARAL's The Morning After. Each Thursday, our podcast brings you the latest on reproductive health care, progressive politics, and the fight to keep abortion safe and legal. NARAL's The Morning After is a production of NARAL Pro-Choice Ohio. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at ProChoiceOH. Enjoy the show.
Hi, I'm Jaime.
Hi, I'm Randi.
Hi, I'm Gabe. We had a really terrific protest outside the Ohio Statehouse yesterday that we're going to talk about in a little bit. We've got some, cool things brewing here. But first, it's our first show since Black Tuesday, or not Black Tuesday. I guess it would be White Women Failed Tuesday.
Yes, White Women Failed Tuesday. Yes,
since the election. Everybody knows what happened.
If you didn't, I don't know where you are.
and can I go there?
Yeah, exactly. Please, may I go there and pretend I don't know what I know?
Yeah, join you under your rock and/or island in the middle of the Pacific,
which is sounding more and more enticing on a daily basis. So yeah, white women fucked it up for everybody. I mean, white men did too, but we just kind of assume white men suck. So
non-college degree and college degree. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. What the fuck's wrong with you?
I don't get the college educated white women.
They were to a lesser degree.
They did. I mean,
yes.
Did Hillary technically win them?
I think she did. Okay. Maybe I can't remember but overall,
not overwhelmingly, she did not win them.
No.
So yeah.
Right.
Fuck.
I hope you don't need rights because you just voted against them. Thanks. Yes. Bye.
Right.
Actually, one of our providers actually told us that the day after election day, somebody came in for a procedure, and you chit chat, and they're like, "Yeah, how you doing this morning?" She's like, "Well, I'm a little slow. I'm a little hungover from celebrating last night." So a white woman, Trump voter, walked into an abortion clinic the next day to get her abortion, and doesn't see the irony in that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, she'll still have access, so it doesn't matter to her because she's probably rich enough to go someplace else. Like Donald Trump says, she'll just have to go to another state. It's fine.
Right. I think there's.
If you can't see Randi's face and you're just listening in, you should actually maybe watch the video because actually the face on Randi right now is priceless.
What? What? The cognitive dissonance in this country is so strong right now.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of people who think that a billionaire wasn't going to go in and help other billionaires. Like, yeah, I just don't understand it. They showed a video of him the other day after he basically said he was done for the night and didn't tell the press that he was going out to dinner. And he gets to the 21 Club. He's like, yeah, the 21 Club, which has a $30 hamburger, and tells them, I'm going to help you with your taxes. Like, I'm going to get your taxes down for you. Mm-hmm. He wasn't talking to you, the person who goes to Denny's. No, what the fuck is wrong with you people? Like, you did this, and he's going to do nothing for you. People literally voted because some of these same people voted for Obama. It's like people literally vote for change just for this complete sake of voting for change, no matter what this person is going to do for you. He hasn't even told you what he's going to do, which is why right now we don't know. He says gay marriage is okay with that. Roe v. Wade is not settled law. We know nothing about him or what he's going to do, and it's going to be a complete shit show. Mm-hmm. But that's what you voted for, just for the sake. We need Jesus. We need help. Our education system needs help because people have no critical thinking skills. I mean,
nope.
Come on. What are you doing? Don't vote for change just so you can say, oh, we had Democrats. So now we're going to vote in this person who knows nothing and who's not going to help you.
Yeah. Well, and doesn't even know the basic functions of government either. Nothing. So how can he even do all these things?
I loved it when he visited the U.S. Capitol for the first time after the election, and they had some just video footage of Paul Ryan, meeting with the Trumps, and there's a balcony of the on the Capitol higher up where you can look out over the mall. and it wasn't the focus of the video, but you could kind of hear a little bit of audio of Paul Ryan pointing out buildings and telling them each of what these buildings are. I'm like, if you run for president, you should know the buildings, the government buildings around the National Mall in Washington, D.C. Like, oh, that's, the place where they print the dollar bills down there. You should know what that building is already. You should know that.
I mean, you should know that if you're taking a duck tour of DC. I mean,
they had no clue.
Fuck?
It's like, well, that's what this building is, and that's what this building is. Welcome to our city. You'll be running our nation now.
Or they had no idea that the entire West Wing staff turns over.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, watch an episode of The West Wing.
Right.
Like.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I think people got into the voting booth, and they took a look, and you can have all of the, hot takes from different columnists that you want, but it really boiled down to they had two choices. One was an asshole, and one was a woman, and they went, oh,
that's his asshole.
Asshole.
And they picked the asshole over the woman.
Yeah,
because she's flawed.
And we can talk, all you want about any aspect of this election, but that's what it boiled down to. It's asshole versus woman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or they picked asshole.
Well, and also all the people who were trying to say that, well, I didn't vote for him because he's a racist asshole, but
it wasn't a deal breaker.
No, but it wasn't a deal breaker either.
Because you don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
So at least acknowledge that. Mm-hmm. Don't say that you did that and then don't have the balls to tell people like myself and acknowledge that you did that, because his sexism and racism will never affect you, and you did it. Yeah. And you said he might get me a job, so I'm gonna do this anyway.
And that's what white women did. White women chose their race over their gender, which they've done historically over and over and over again. So you know what?
So that's where the swing voters came down. The other part of it is where the base voters came down. And this is where I've always envied conservatives, the Republican base, is because they went in saying, we want our candidate.
Yeah.
We don't care what his flaws are. We want our candidate. We're going to vote for him solid. We want our candidate.
Yeah.
And the left, we're over here going, should we wear the safety pin? Is it hypocritical to wear the safety pin? Just screwing around with really stupid shit. And that cost us a presidency, and it's going to cost us a Supreme Court nominee.
Yes. I read something just this morning before I came and sat down over here. Democrats keep bringing a butter knife to a gunfight.
Yeah.
And because we're so, which it's a good analogy, because on one hand, it's like, no, we don't want to be like them. We're not going to, become bigots and be prejudiced. We do want to bring everybody in. But at the same time, it's like, what can we do if they're doing all these things and they're okay with it, and even now that they're in power, want to take that and just basically use it to try to bash us over the head with it.
Right.
What we can't continue to just be like, but it's hard to do, because again, I don't want us to just be like they were and just be like the party of no, we have nothing else but no. But
Democrats and, progressives need to start standing together, and there's so many issues where I see this time and again.
Yeah.
And, Democrats just think about it too much, and we saw this with the previous election cycle here in Ohio. There was, a ballot initiative to legalize marijuana, and friends of mine that are big potheads voted against it because they're like, oh, well, it's going to do this. And I'm like, it's an initiative so you can buy legal weed. Do you want legal weed? Yes or no? And they were like, well, and then they all voted against it. I'm like, that was the initiative to buy legal weed. You got what you wanted, legal weed, and you voted against it because you talked yourself out of it. And I'm not saying that they didn't have some decent points or whatever, but it boils down to, are you all going to stand together and get what you want, deep down at heart?
Yeah.
Or are you just going to, navel gaze your way and just be so wishy-washy that you can't build a movement?
Yeah.
But I think you've got to find a way to balance it from the blind sheep
Yes.
as well, because there's a lot of people.
I'd love to have some blind sheep right now.
And I think there are a lot of blind sheep in the Democratic Party.
Line up, sheep. We can use you.
But if you're going to build a movement, you don't build a movement on blind sheep. So, how can we now take this and say, it's interesting because, we work with funders all the time. We're a nonprofit. So, and everybody's, new thing is, it used to be called the Rising American Electorate. And I don't know what they call it now, new era voters or whatever the freak it is. It's millennials, it's women of color, and it's
everybody who doesn't look like me.
Yeah. Everybody who doesn't look like Gabe or isn't married to somebody who looks like Gabe.
Right.
And, and those are the people who won. Like, we won those people.
Yeah, we did. We won.
Like,
the
maybe we don't need to focus so much on them, because as much as we like to talk about how millennials and black people aren't involved, they're fucking involved already.
Yes.
So maybe we need to actually start looking at the white women and those people who we need to figure out how the hell to communicate to them that they need to stop voting against their interests and actually get rolling on these things. Because, I mean,
it really burns me up that we need those people.
I know,
to win.
I just want to say fuck them.
But we do. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to say unfortunately, because I honestly, thinking about it, I had to try to be on social media less and less, but just thinking about it and thinking about all the people who say, who voted for him in spite of everything. And I even read people still say, well, he's not racist or sexist. Where did you ever see that? I'm like, okay. But it made me realize that, literally racism, sexism, all the isms are literally a cognitive dissonance. It's literally a mental illness. Yeah. You're not living in reality. You have to have a disconnect with reality to actually be okay with that and believe it. And I think for them, of course, you don't want to say yourself as being a prejudiced person. So for them, it's almost they cannot admit to him being that, because then that would mean that they voted for him being that. So it's kind of just this vicious cycle of, I'm not in reality and I can't be in that reality because I don't want to think of myself as a bad person. Yeah. And, and that's what it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So the election wasn't just a total loss for us nationally. We also got screwed over here in the state of Ohio.
Yay.
Our pro-choice base in the legislature, we lost one seat each in the House and Senate. Sarah Grace down in Athens was a terrific pro-choice candidate that would have represented that community, but
replacing Debbie Phillips, who was termed out. Thanks, term limits.
But Athens is surrounded by Trump supporters, and so that took that district. And then in Cuyahoga County,
Emily
Hagan, thank you. Was running for the state Senate. We'd endorsed her. And, again, she would, she'd be, and will someday be a terrific pro-choice legislator. But suburban Cuyahoga County is Cuyahoga County.
Yeah.
And so we weren't able to grab that seat.
Yeah. So both the House and Senate lost a seat, bringing the total number of Democrats in the Senate down to 9. And actually giving the Republicans a veto-proof majority in the House. They officially have the 3/5 that they need.
Right.
And I mean, we had anti-choice Democrats, so they had a veto-proof anti-choice majority already. But now the Republicans, even when we do win, because we will win the governor's race in 2018, we'll have to also pick up some seats in the Ohio House too, to give that new governor any kind of power at all.
Right. Yeah. And, when we list those 2 seats that I just mentioned, those weren't the only 2 that we had out there that we were looking for victories in. And I do want to give a shout out to some of our really great pro-choice supporters across the state. Tommy Green and Brittany Bowman come to mind as people who, have run before and they're running in districts that are red to purple at best. But they're out there sticking their necks out every single election cycle, saying, hey, we need a Democratic candidate. We need a pro-choice candidate in this district. I'll be that person. I know that, maybe this isn't the year, but maybe next time it will. And they keep showing up. So we need those folks, and we're very proud to have them on the bench. So hopefully we'll get them in the game.
Yes,
that's another thing that like irks me so much about all the people who didn't vote is because even if you didn't want to vote for president, which you should have, but even if you didn't want to have to choose between the two of them, like there were so many other races on the ballot, so many other things you could still vote for that actually affect your life more than the president. And people just forget that. Like, yeah, it's crazy.
Yep. Looking back to national politics, we weren't able to kick Rob Portman out of the U.S. Senate. Rob Portman, we're giving him grief the entire year over his failure to do his job and call for a hearing for Merrick Garland. So I know there's some speculation about that nomination. Like maybe there could be some crack we could slip him through and get that justice seat filled before President Obama leaves office. Is that actually a thing, or?
Yeah, I mean, there is a thing. It's called a recess appointment. So if the Senate did go into like a holiday recess, that Obama could, and I think there's actually a recess of more than 72 hours or something. Like it has to be more than just like a Saturday, Sunday.
So if they all fell asleep or went to the Caribbean on vacation in the same day.
So we've played this game before, and I can't remember. It was in one of the very first years of Obama's presidency when he still had more colored hair than gray hair.
Right.
Me too. And so I think it was like the labor secretary, or it was one of those cabinet positions, and they were refusing to fill them because, of course, the labor secretary Obama wanted was close with unions because we support unions.
The labor secretary.
Exactly. They're called labor unions for a reason. And of course, the Republicans didn't like it, so they were blocking his nomination. And the Senate went on a very, very tight little recess that was, I guess, just right at the border or something like that of the timing it had to be. So Obama slipped it through, and then it became this court case and everything else. So there are specific rules and everything around it. The Senate knows how to get around that too. So my guess is that they just won't go on recess before the 31st of December. But there is a chance that he could slip Merrick Garland in there. And he should, because they stole this nomination from him. I mean, this is something that, there were jokes about it, but it's also very serious. The first black president got, 3/5 of his term.
Exactly.
And, we talk about the Democrats not being the party of no. Well, the Republicans were saying we weren't going to confirm anybody for 4 years. So you know what? What's good for the goose is good for the gander, and have fun. So it's just one of those other things. So we'll see what happens for the rest of the year, and we'll see if Democrats can grow enough of a spine to stand up against these things.
They better.
I mean, there are some things that we could maybe come together on, funding for bridges and things like that if it's done right. But like, you can't just say, I want funding for bridges, so I'm going to roll over on all this other shit to get this one tiny little thing. And that's usually what Democrats do. So not holding my breath, but and I'm also not pissed off at Obama for trying to help him. I mean, that's what presidents are supposed to do. So like the rest of everybody else can, tell Trump to go screw himself. But, we do.
He still has to help him with the transition. It's terrible as
Well,
he obviously needs a lot of help.
I actually kind of want a functioning government on January 21st.
Yes,
I would prefer the federal government to not crumble to the ground.
Oh my God. Someone made the argument that it's good that Trump is taking a long time because the longer he takes, the people who were there will just stay there until he replaces them. And he's like, that's good because we want the professionals to stay in place as long as possible. Yes. I was like, yes, that actually makes sense. Like, please take your time, be a complete shit show, and get nothing done.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, today they actually came out with the fact that, Trump ran on draining the swamp and not using lobbyists. And then he immediately appointed 500 lobbyists to his transition team and everything else. They're actually firing them all. As of today, Mike Pence said that every single lobbyist they've now hired for their transition team, because you really can't hire anybody who knows how to do any of these jobs who isn't or hasn't been at some point a lobbyist.
Right.
Because of the way that Washington works.
Yeah.
So they're firing everyone who has a lobbying connection from the transition team and basically starting all over again. So, I mean, this is becoming more and more of a shit show by the day.
Why do you want, like, you have to have somebody who works in that field who knows something to actually help you do it.
No.
Like, I don't understand why people are so, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I mean,
for you to say you want 0 people who have done this to help you.
I mean, not all lobbyists are fabulous. I'm a lobbyist. I think I'm pretty good. Like, I lobby for good things.
Yes.
Like, you know, like there are people out there, and frankly, with the way that things turn over and everything else, those are the people who kind of know. And that's actually one of the things that's so bad about term limits, is that you don't get the institutional knowledge with the member.
Right.
You get the institutional knowledge with the lobbyists and the staff, and that actually gives more. Term limits don't equal things out. They actually give more power to lobbyists and staff than they give to the members. So, you know, all these things that these systems actually create these things, and sorry, you can't drain the swamp or you're just gonna destroy the swamp.
It's kind of the equivalent if a hospital said, well, no, we're not going to hire anyone who's been a doctor at another hospital before.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like, now hold on.
Yeah, exactly.
They learned something there.
It's crazy.
You know. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see how the Supreme Court appointment goes.
Yeah. I hope that they get rid of, he's talking about draining the swamp and he's trying to get Steve Bannon. I'm like,
yeah.
Well,
I hope the Democrats, I don't know. I mean, they are saying that they want him to rescind the appointment. I don't know what that's going to do, but
yeah, they have no power. It's not something that Democrats have to confirm. So doesn't like he can do whatever the hell he wants to do on that one.
So you know, it is likely that Trump will get to pick his own Supreme Court nominee to fill the Scalia seat. We feel that it's important to point out that Whole Woman's Health was a 5-3 decision, even if somebody who's anti-choice comes in, you know, that breakdown on abortion issues still remains a 5-4 decision, with the majority supporting abortion rights and opposing restrictions on abortion providers.
Yeah, I mean, Kennedy joining that 5-3 decision was actually frankly a surprise to most people, you know, because Kennedy was really seen as kind of a status quo kind of justice. So we could have completely and totally opted out of actually taking a stand and made it a 4-4 tie and kind of let it be. You know, he took a big leap by becoming that 5th. So, you know, I think, I mean, even if Scalia hadn't passed away and he was still on the court, we still would have won that 5-4. So
I've seen like mixed comments on whether or not like they will see a case to determine like whether they would want to overturn Roe v. Wade.
Yeah, they would need some kind of split in the court. So, you know, right now the only things that are really pending out there are challenges on the heartbeat type bills. It's a 6-week ban, I think, in North Dakota, and it was a 12-week ban in Alabama. But both of those were struck down by the lower court, so there's not a split.
And the North Dakota case went to the Supreme Court
and they kicked it back,
leaving it. So that one is pretty much
that one's dead. Yeah, they can't go back to that well again. Alabama could try, but they would most likely get kicked back again because, you know, they had kicked back the marriage equality cases until our fabulous Ohio Sixth Circuit Court went, oh no, it's totally fine to discriminate against gay people. And so it was that split because all the other courts had said, no, it's not okay. When the Sixth Circuit said, yeah, it's totally fine and created this court split was when the Supreme Court finally took it up. So you would need that split somewhere. So we've got the heartbeat type bans, and then several states, but not all the states, have challenged their 20-week bans. But again, in all of the places where we have challenged the 20-week bans, we've won the challenge. We've won that challenge, and the bill's been blocked. So again, there's no split.
And 20-week bans are being challenged because they violate Planned Parenthood versus Casey, which said you're not allowed to ban abortion before viability. So we've got Roe, which everybody knows, which legalized abortion. We've got Planned Parenthood versus Casey, which was from the early 90s, 92, 93, that, you know, said no bans before viability. And now we've got 2016's Whole Women's Health, which said no, really, you
No,
can't.
Undue
Yeah,
burden.
yeah.
That's
Really,
exactly
it really redefined the undue burden. So I think you could actually even, I'm not a lawyer, but like, from looking at some of the legal documents, you could actually start making a more whole women's health type argument on the 20-week bans. Is there a health benefit? Balances out the burden you're now putting on these women by not being able to get access to the care, especially in cases where their health is at risk or they're carrying an unviable fetus. So I think there are some with whole women's health, some, places you could go, but yeah, I mean, they'd need a court split somewhere.
Yeah.
So
we
we'll
still
see.
have our 5 justices. We have, 3 court cases over a 40-year period. Every 20 years they come back and they reaffirm it, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
To me, that's kind of settled law. So maybe Donald Trump could learn that.
I know, right?
Right.
Well, I've also heard the argument that that's always been the Republicans' golden goose and that they would never actually repeal it because then they wouldn't have that issue to gin up their base with.
And it's possible.
There's a very valid point. Okay. So that was the election.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Moving on to even more depressing news. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
this episode's not going to be uplifting. Apologize to the listeners / watchers.
Jaime, we'll let you take this because you know more about this subject than anybody else in the state of Ohio. So.
All right. So if you read the newspaper.
Let me amend that. Talk down to us because we don't all understand this.
No. Yes. If you've read either the Dayton Daily News or the Columbus Dispatch this week, you have seen an article in either of those papers about 2 of our clinics. Women's Health. No, Women's Med Center. Too many W sounding abortion clinics.
So Women's Med Center.
Women's Med Center in Dayton. It's Dr. Haskell's clinic. His one remaining clinic because he's already had to close the Cincinnati facility. Clinic was denied their variance from the Department of Health.
What's a variance?
So in Ohio, if you paid attention to Whole Women's Health, part of what Whole Women's Health struck down was a requirement that doctors had to have admitting privileges with a local hospital. Ohio doesn't quite go that far. It requires something called a transfer agreement. So it's a contract between any ambulatory surgical facility. So it's not just abortion clinics. So your LASIK eye centers, your outpatient orthopedic centers, your dental surgery, cosmetic surgery, all those things, all have to have a transfer agreement with a local hospital, which basically says in the case of an emergency that the clinic can't handle, the facility can't handle, we will transfer a patient to you and ensures continuity of care. But it does none of that actually, because what happens when you transfer a patient from any place, ambulatory surgical facility, church, our office, if you call 911, an ambulance comes, they pick up the patient, and the ambulance driver decides where to take the patient. So in so many of these cases, they're taking them to the closest hospital, whether or not there's a transfer agreement in place.
So the transfer agreement is just on file somewhere, but in reality, we're still just dialing 911 and taking an ambulance to a hospital.
Yes, because it's better, you're not going to put a...
Because duh.
Yeah, because duh, yeah. I mean, you're not going to put the patient in the back seat of your car and drive them to the transfer agreement hospital because they're not getting any medical care during that transport. You're calling 911 because they're the people who transfer people in emergencies. And so if you can't get a transfer agreement, and more and more our clinics are having trouble, and not a surprise, all the other ambulatory surgical facilities are not having trouble getting transfer agreements. Shocker.
Because nobody rejects the dentist's request.
Yes, exactly. Because nobody protests when the hospital contracts with the dentist.
Right.
So maybe we should start doing that. So if you can't get a transfer agreement, you can do something called apply for a variance to the transfer agreement. So what happens is that you contract with individual doctors to kind of stand in place of the transfer agreement. So these backup doctors have to have admitting privileges with a hospital within 30 miles of the clinic. And the doctors are the transfer agreement. So you get 3 doctors to sign a contract, or 4 doctors, however many doctors. The law is 1 or more physicians, actually. So really, 1 doctor should be sufficient.
Because when I had my wisdom teeth pulled, there was 1, doctor there.
Yes.
There wasn't a team. It's
and these are people, and these are people not actually on site. So these are people who most likely work at the hospital. So
they're just on call.
Yeah, they're just on call for an emergency situation.
Even though in an emergency, you wouldn't call the people on call. You'd call 911.
Exactly.
Yes.
And actually, I mean, with the Cincinnati case, this was one of the things that just made my brain want to explode when they forced the Haskell Cincinnati clinic to close. One of the reasons ODH took for denying his future variance applications was in one case where he did have a patient emergency where he needed to transport a patient. He had his official backup doctors at one of the hospitals, and then he had his kind of backups to his backups just in case these backups weren't available that day. And which is required under this whole process, that you're supposed to have these extra people sitting around just in case. So he had his backups to his backups at a different hospital, and he learned from the ambulance driver that they were going to go to the backup of the backup doctor's hospital, not his official backup doctor's hospitals. So if you're following along, we're going to the backup of the backups. They were getting transported to that hospital, so he called his backup to his backup doctors because they were actually the ones at that hospital.
Yeah.
ODH rejected his next variance application because he didn't call his real backup doctors at the other hospital
Where that he was not
that the
going
patient
to.
was not going to. This is how ridiculous
This is not about women's health.
No, this is so not about women's health. So yeah, so now they're trying to deny Haskell's variance in Dayton, again saying that it's not sufficient to protect patient health. Let's just repeat Randy's statement.
This is not about women's health.
Thank you. So, but the thing with this is that this is not the end, because denying the variance is just a piece of the license application. You need the variance to get the license, but they have not yet revoked the license. And when reporters asked ODH when they planned on revoking the license, they said, we haven't done that yet, and we have no time frame to do it. Here that this variance is necessary, and the variance is not good enough to protect the patient's health at the clinic. If it really was the case that it's not good enough to protect the health of the patients at the clinic, ODH should be knocking on their door today to close this place down. This is just another proof that this variance has absolutely nothing to do with the safety of any patient walking in the door.
Right.
So he's still legally operating with a license in Dayton, allowed to stay open under Ohio law. He is not operating without a license or whatever else the hell Ohio Right to Life wants to talk about. He is legally operating with a license. They've not revoked his license. He is still open. So then in Columbus, in a similar case, Grant Hospital recently decided to deny the transfer agreement for Founders Women's Health Center in Columbus. They were, actually it's Ohio Health in general, because Grant doesn't operate on its own any longer. They were the transfer agreement for both Planned Parenthood and Founders Women's Health Center. They decided to not renew that transfer agreement with Founders. And so that clinic started the process of applying for a variance, and ODH again has denied it because of insufficient doctors. I think she had 2. Haskell had 3 and was denied. Planned Parenthood is currently operating with a valid variance. They applied with 4. So I guess the magic number is 4 now, which is still stupid because it's 1 or more, but whatever. So so we're now looking at, can we increase the number of doctors, or can we go back to Grant? We're trying to figure out what's going on and get the lay of the land so that the Columbus clinic can also then try to reapply. And again, the Columbus clinic has not been denied a license. It is still operating. It is still open. And, if they do get the revoke of license, the next step is just going to court, like in Toledo. So it will not mean like an automatic immediate closure of the clinic. It just forces us all into court on all these things. So these are really...
Maybe that would be good for the long run. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like it would be determined that under the new precedent that it's obviously an undue burden that has nothing to do with health.
Yeah. And that's the case. And there is the Toledo case already started through the court system, although it's in state court, not federal court. And there is actually a court case. Haskell is part of it. The Dayton Clinic is actually part of an already existing federal court case on the transfer agreements and variant stuff that's in federal court. And I think their court date, they filed it in like May or June, and their court date is like February of 2017. So we're still waiting for that first initial court date. So there are processes in place and people going through the courts and those kinds of things. But again, the Sixth Circuit is the one that said, it's totally fine not to let gay people get married. So who knows what that's really going to look like. But so that's kind of where we are on the clinics. Just an update on kind of all the other things. We're still waiting. The Attorney General asked the Ohio Supreme Court to review our win in Lucas County Court of Appeals the 6th District State Court of Appeals, not the 6th Circuit Federal Court. So we're still waiting to hear this, if the state Supreme Court will take up that case or just let the lower court win, stand. And then, of course, there are several court cases with the Cincinnati Dayton clinics that we're still waiting on as well.
Oy vey.
But there are still 9 clinics operating in Ohio. They're all still open and still legally operating.
Despite the fact that the State Department of Health is playing the game that Ohio Right to Life wants them to play. Okay. We'll keep you posted.
Y'all better vote in 2018. I don't want to hear shit.
Pretty much.
Okay, so that brings us up to yesterday. In addition to all of the Department of Health driven stunts that they're using to attack abortion providers, we anticipate that during this lame duck session between now and the very end of 2016, the Ohio General Assembly will probably try to pass one or more abortion restrictions. We know from a previous article in the Cleveland Plain Dealer that a 20-week abortion ban, which is already, there's 2 bills that they could choose from, one of which has already passed through the Senate, so it's now over in the House. That's Senate Bill 127, is a 20-week abortion ban. That's the one that they mentioned in the Plain Dealer article back in September that would be a lame duck target. And
no exceptions for...
Right, no exceptions for rape or incest, bans abortion at 20 weeks or later.
Has a very narrow life exemption. So the woman has to be in imminent danger of death.
Yeah, about to die before they will help you.
Yeah, that's the exception.
So that's one possibility. The other possibility is a continuation of this whole stupid thing where Mike DeWine was like, "Oh my God, Planned Parenthood uses an industry standard.
Steam cooks. They steam cook babies."
Yeah,
they don't.
That's what DeWine.
They don't.
That's what DeWine claimed.
Yes.
Once he realized that he could talk about just what the medical industry does with biological material.
Yes.
And so they wrote up some bills saying that fetal remains have to be cremated or buried, which would be additional expenses. It's not something that women have been asking for, and even if they were asking for in the past, it was legal then.
And clinics do it already. Like if a woman does want to bury or cremate, they have the ability to bury or cremate. If they
we
keep
don't
talking.
need a law requiring this.
It's not a choice when you force women to only choose certain things.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the kicker of all of this was the report from Channel 10 here in Columbus when they realized that the state of Ohio uses the steam cooking for fetal remains for women when they have
miscarriages in prison.
Miscarriages in prison. So both of these bills, the 20-week ban is a horrible thing to do to women. It's dangerous. It is a very bad law.
Yes.
The restrictions on the handling of biological material is completely unnecessary, and it, adds restrictions and costs to abortion providers, which is unconstitutional if you follow the guidelines of a woman's health. So these are the 2 bills that we're expecting. In anticipation of one of these 2, or maybe some third possibility coming out of left field.
Who the hell knows?
NARAL Pro-Choice Ohio, Planned Parenthood Advocates of Ohio, Preterm, New Voices Cleveland,
Urge, and Women Have Options.
Women Have Options. Those groups and some of our friends got together and planned a big protest yesterday at the State House. 400 some people showed up. We actually surrounded the State House on all 4 sides, filling an entire city block 4 sides. Massive protest last night for 2 hours, just surrounding it, screaming and yelling and hollering and showing the legislators that we're trying to do business around downtown Columbus that, hey, we're here, we're angry, and we're not going back.
Yep. And it was a fabulous showing. It was really good. The energy was amazing.
Yeah.
Especially was the first time I felt really good in the last week. So I think it was healing in a lot of ways. It really was, Joe Ingles from Ohio Public Radio asked, in light of Trump, do you feel more under siege? And, my response back was, we've been under siege before, and we're here. And this showing here is saying that we're not backing down, we might be under siege, but we're here to fight. We're still going to be here to fight. As much as I joke about moving to a Caribbean island, there's no way in hell I'm leaving, and might need to take more breaks there. But, so it really did show the legislators that we're here. And it also emboldened our friends. It's hard enough that we kind of work on the outskirts of politics and legislation and the legislature, but we've got a lot of really amazing friends who work in that building as legislators every day, who won their races last week. And as I was talking to one of them yesterday, she was like, it kind of felt like partying at a funeral, that I won and we lost so bad everywhere else. So, really lifting up our supporters. We had State Representative Kristen Boggs, State Senator Caprica Faro, State Reps Stephanie House, Kathleen Clyde, Dan Ramos, Greta Johnson. I think that was all I saw there.
Yeah, great support from our from some of our friends in the legislature.
Yeah, that is awesome. Good things did. Just a little tidbit on that note. What did happen on Black Tuesday, or I guess he who shall not be named. We actually did vote in the most women of color into the Senate we've ever voted in before.
Yes.
With Kamala Harris, California, Tammy Duckworth, Illinois. I'm missing. Was Catherine Cortez Masto?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
from Nevada.
Think so. Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, it was Harry Reid's seat.
You might fact check me on that, people, but yes.
Yeah, there were some little tiny bright spots in the sea of darkness.
Yes,
and despair.
Little tiny bright spots.
But now we've got all these people that are fired up and ready to go. And so what we're looking for here in Ohio is the potential for some committee hearings and possible votes. So some dates if you want to mark down on your calendar. Potentially we could see hearings on November 29th or December 6th. If so, we could then see votes on November 30th or December 7th. So the 29th, 30th, 6th, and 7th, I think those are Tuesdays and Wednesdays of those weeks. There's only a limited number of dates where the legislature might try and move something.
Those are really it.
Yeah.
those 4 days are really it at this point.
So keep those open. We'll let folks know if we see hearings scheduled to come and pack the committee room. And then in addition to the bad bills that we're looking at, there's also the access without apology bills that demand abortion rights. These are pieces of legislation that were introduced in 2015 to restore funding for Planned Parenthood, to remove some of these, transfer agreement style restrictions, a bunch of other stuff. And all of these bills that were introduced still need to have committee hearings.
Yeah, so they're legally required to at least have one hearing.
Right. So we'll probably see, my guess is all of these all on one day.
Probably the 6th.
Yeah, probably December 6th.
Maybe even after that, when they've actually even just all gone away. I mean, we've had issues where in the past people have, said, okay, fine, I'll give you a hearing, but it's going to be on like December 24th.
Yeah.
To which our legislators are like, okay, fine, I'll say yes to that. Then your ass has to be there too.
Like, don't be a dick.
Yeah, they will be. I mean, given the opportunity, that is the default position, Randy. Right. Come on.
So we'll see how that goes. We'll keep you posted.
Yes.
And we got some really terrific. We did a Facebook Live video during our big protest yesterday. I'm going to post that on the blog. So check out NARALProtestohio.com. That's our blog.
Like, was that me losing my voice?
You did just fine. It was good.
I'm sure it was fabulous.
We've got that video. And then, there's other Facebook Live. There was a bunch of people shooting video. Joe Ingles, the reporter, she was shooting something.
I did too. And it really is hilarious how long that block is when you're like, number one, walking the entire thing at a quick pace.
Long.
And then also trying to hold your phone out at a certain angle and not make it go like this all over the place. It's a much bigger block than you really think it is.
We got some good exercise last night.
Yeah, I hit my step count really early yesterday.
Yeah.
Stephanie House was another one. Representative House was shooting some videos. So we might try and link to some of those so people can see exactly what it looked like. It's absolutely amazing to see all four sides of that block.
How many people do you think we had? I guess
I would say at least 400. I mean, when I did
because it took about 100 people to cover each side.
Yeah, I did the math, and before when we were planning this to see if it was actually possible to put people on both sides, like I needed a number before we said, yeah, we could totally do that. And it was, it really took a bare minimum of 400 if you were spreading 4 feet. Yeah. So, there were definitely,
we had several hundred supporters from Central Ohio, plus a bus from Cleveland, a bus from Cincinnati, carloads from Toledo. Really great support from across the state. So, like I said, NARALProChoiceOhio.com. That'll take you to the blog, and we'll put some pics and video in the show notes.
Sweet.
Sing us out.
Let's get it on. Okay. Sign our petition. We have a petition online?
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, we do. You can find it if you go to our Facebook page. You can find it if you go to our Facebook page. We put the link in the video. It'll, of course, be in the show notes. It's a bit.ly link, so bit.ly/StopTheBans2016.
Cool. So go and sign our petition online. Also, thank you to all of the volunteers who put in a lot of work trying to get Hillary elected. It didn't happen because of that damn electoral college, even though she's won the popular vote.
By over 1 million votes.
By over 1 million votes. Okay. Anyways, we're not bitter about it at all. Thank you. Like I said, even though technically we lost, I think that, this is just going to make us have to fight even harder. We're going to keep going. And I still believe that, because we won the popular vote, that gives me faith that we're hopefully on the right path, and that we're just going to have to do everything that we can to keep them from, fucking shit up, basically. But yes, thank you so much. Thank you for calling, for walking, for doing data entry, for writing postcards, for going to rallies. We really appreciate it. And of course, please contact me. I'm making a list, but please contact me if you have your amount of numbers, because the prizes are here. You guys may have forgotten that we're doing a volunteer rewards program, but we did it. And so please let me know, and I'll be also contacting you so you can get your prizes. Woohoo. Yay.
They're awesome. We should have brought them out here so people could see them, but we
I know,
failed,
that'd be good. But also, remember, lame duck session still going on. We need you guys to come. Remember those dates, which was November 29th and the 30th, and also December 6th and December 7th. So put those on your calendar. Also, volunteer at prochoiceohio.org. I still have data entry for interested. So, yeah. Thank you.
Okay. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.